Dr. Megha Deuskar today, and we have been doing various activities related to asanas and isometric exercises and various other things. Today is something in the area of yoga only, but slightly different than asanas. So we call this yoga nidra, and we have an expert with us, Dr. Megha Deuskar, who's a psychology professor, a very good expert in yoga nidra because she's done her PhD in yoga nidra, as well as she herself is a counselor, and she also runs a diploma of so she heads a diploma in counseling psychology at Ferguson College. So she's a professor at Ferguson College, and she's been in the field of teaching for now more than 13-14 years. So has a wide experience in the field of teaching, training, counseling, and yoga nidra is her expertise. Nidra, as we mean as sleep, but the right way to do it is yoga nidra, because various aspects related to yoga included in the right way of sleeping is the right methodology, where you experience a very different sort of relaxation and many more transcendental states after that. Just that to begin with, it also works very brilliantly on reducing your stress and increasing relaxation. And in today's time of pandemic and stressful situation, I think yoga nidra is a very, very powerful technique that all of us can use regularly. So now I hand it over to Dr. Megha, and she will take us through the concept as well as an experience with yoga nidra. Over to Dr. Megha.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, all my participants for today's program. So, Anand, first of all, thank you so much for that very flattering and nice introduction. Um, like Anand said, I completed my PhD in Yoga Nidra in 2006. And ever since then, I've been doing these small workshops about Yoga Nidra. So, one thing is, I realized that there is some point, of course, in doing research and proving the effectiveness of this technique scientifically through statistics and through numbers. But I think more than that, it is infinitely potent, that technique, and it is very simple to practice. And so, unless it reaches the masses, unless people understand the enormous value of using it in their everyday life, it's really of little value to keep publishing research papers about the effectiveness of this technique. That is why in the last 14 15 years or so, I've been doing these workshops about this technique. And like Anand said, one of the very important benefits of this is to get that immediate relief from the stress and the anxiety that most of us feel, I think, because of the extremely hectic life that we lead. And the benefits of this technique are threefold. So, one is on the physical level, many times we have these residual tensions, which many times don't even get released after a good night's sleep. So, I'm sure some of you might have experienced that. You might have slept for 8 hours straight at night, but you still don't feel rested completely. And that's because we sleep, but our body and our mind doesn't get to really release all of those tensions of the earlier day. And so this is one huge benefit of yoga nidra, that we get to relax completely in a physical way. Second is that on a mental level also we start feeling, or an emotional level also we start feeling a certain silence from inside. But I think much more than that is the whole idea of we being able to connect with our unconscious mind. And that is what I'll be talking to you a little bit about in today's session. In the first half, I'll just try to explain to you a little bit about what this technique taps into and why is it so important to tap into the unconscious mind. And after that, we will do this practice. So I hope that all of you are wearing comfortable cotton clothes, and y'all are also ready with a yoga mat or something on which you can lie down and you can completely relax with the help of these instructions. And we can also leave about 5 or 10 minutes in the end for you all to share some of your experiences, or if you have any questions you can ask your questions. So we'll leave about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes in the end for interaction. Okay. So with this, let me just begin to talk to you a little bit about what Yoga Nidra is and how it was discovered. So the credit of proposing this technique goes to Swami Satyananda Saraswati, who was a student of Swami Shivananda, and he belongs to the Bihar School of Yoga, which is in Munger, Bihar. So this technique was not, there is no mention of this technique anywhere in the ancient texts of yoga, but it is a more recent phenomenon. So it was in the last century that Swami Satyananda Saraswati discovered this magnificent, extremely simple, yet very profound technique. Now what happened was that during his life in Swami Shivananda's ashram, and even afterwards when he himself became the head of that order, um, there were some intriguing experiences where he realized that there is a certain learning that is going on even when someone is sleeping. So one was an incident which happened to himself when he understood that he had grasped something when he was sleeping. And a few years later, when he became the head of that Bihar School of Yoga, there was this problematic child that came to him, and he decided to try out such an exercise with him. And he realized that there are profound changes that come about in the person's personality, and also their intelligence and overall attitude towards life, just when something is happening to them, something is being taught to them, even as they are sleeping. So he himself was very intrigued because of these experiences. And then he decided to pursue this whole phenomenon more closely. And then, while doing that, he started to explore some of the ancient Indian texts, like what we call as wisdom traditions. So he went back to the Tantras, he went back to um, some of those ancient darshanas and a lot of scriptures that had been written. And he figured out that in India, there is a conceptualization of the human being in which there is a beautiful understanding of the unconscious mind. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how the human being is conceptualized. So there is a concept called panchakoshas, which means that we all exist on different sheets or different levels of existence. Each level is progressively more subtle and progressively more influential and more powerful than the previous level. So if you start off from the outermost level, so at the outermost level, we are this body, this physical body, which is made of flesh and bones and muscle. And this physical body is supposed to be the most mechanistic of the levels on which we live. Okay, so it's the most outer and the most mechanistic. Now, though we all understand that this body of ours is also infinitely beautiful, extremely intricate, and very, very complicated. So, if you study, for example, the functioning of the human heart, just take one organ, for instance, you might find that it is so intricate and so beautifully designed. There are those two auricles and ventricles, and the vena cava, and then the artery, and it pumps blood everywhere and keeps purifying so much blood. uh, they say, just for interest sake I'm saying, they say that the human heart is, um, if you can imagine the energy that is needed to lift a weight of 1000 kgs or 1 ton from ground to 124 feet above, the energy that will be required to do that is the energy that our heart expends in its one day of work. So it is that powerful, and we can actually touch God only if we start to really understand the functioning of the human body. But still, this outermost level of the human existence, which is this body, is supposed to be the most mechanistic and the grossest level. So why is that? The reason is that this body cannot remain functional until it is animated by the breath, until there is the pranamaya kosh, or the sheath of the vitality, which is inside the annamaya kosh, or this food body, and which keeps the body vitalized all the time. So with each breath that is coming in, we are taking in a lot of that vital energy. So by the way, this is not about oxygen, but it is about this vital energy that's there in this whole universe, that we are taking in with every breath, and that goes inside, and it not only completes all these autonomic activities, like circulation of blood, digestion of food, assimilation of the nutrients inside the food, and elimination of waste and everything. But it actually makes it possible for us to have the energy for all voluntary activities. So all the talking, the walking, the thinking, all the voluntary activities that we do, all are powered by the pranamaya kosh. So we can understand that it is this body is in and of itself not capable of carrying out anything, though it is a very very highly organized and a very intricate instrument. It's not capable of doing anything on its own until it is powered and it is animated by the pranamaya kosh. And that is why this whole idea of right breathing, taking in the right way of breathing, is so extremely important. And we all know that our the second level of us is now very intricately interwoven with the third level of us, which is the level of our mind, our thoughts and feelings. So a simple example, uh, when we become emotionally upset, somehow the rhythm of our breathing changes. So we start to breathe in a shallow and irregular way. Many of us have experienced that when we are angry, we are just breathing in a very shallow and irregular way, or even when we are anxious, we are not breathing properly. But when we are in a calm and a very peaceful state of mind, our breathing naturally becomes very soft and very even and very gentle. Okay, and it comes in a rhythmic sort of a flow. So somehow this second level, which is like a bridge, it is like something that joins the body with the mind, is is responsive to everything that is happening in the mind. And that is why we say that if we want to cool down, like if we are very angry and if we want to cool down, we just have to keep breathing slowly, steadily. Okay, take a deep breath, breathe out very slowly, and slowly we realize that our body also begins to cool down, and so does our mind. Okay, so there's this huge um, connection between the mind and the body, which is this pranamaya kosh. Now, this third kosh, which is the level of the mind, is again much more subtle, yet much more powerful than the pranamaya kosh. So you can understand this also very easily uh, with some of these experiences of our everyday living. Mm, so on a given day, when we are not in a good mood, or we are somehow upset, so we start making mistakes even in the smallest routine activities that we do. So for instance, when if we are cooking, we cut our finger because we are mentally not okay. So this level of thoughts and feelings is something that continuously keeps affecting us, even though our breath and our mind and our body are both functioning fine. Now, compared to the breath, if you look at the mind, it is way more subtle. So at least the breath, it is something that you can understand. The body is something very gross, so you can touch it. It's a very concrete substance, it's made of substance. The breath comparatively is much less concrete, and it is not made of concrete substance, though there is air that is going in and coming out. But if you look at the mind, you cannot really figure out what a thought is, or you cannot understand what a feeling is. If you try to open the body anatomically, you will not find a thought anywhere, but you still know that your thoughts are affecting both your breath as well as your body. Many people even say that if a person is going through a terrible crisis, like a severe disease, or probably battling for life after an accident, then if the mind is if the mind tells the person to come back to life, then they survive the accident. People say right, that if you have the will to live, then you will come out of this crisis. So it is that powerful, our level of thoughts and feelings. But all this still, okay, the body, the breath, and the mind, all this still lie in the realm of the conscious. We are conscious of our body. We can be conscious of our breath, though we are not necessarily aware of it all the time. And at least we can understand what our thoughts are. But inside of this, there is one more level or one more sheath of us, which is called as the Vijnanamay Kosh, or the astral body. It's the astral or the psychic sheath of us. And this is something that most people never really tap into. And here what happens is, it's the beginning of that level of the unconscious mind. So I'm not really talking about the Western concept of the conscious and unconscious mind, because somehow we have become um, so used to this notion. It has been talked about so much, people just use these words glibly, this, yeah, they could be in your subconscious, it could be in your unconscious. People use this word so easily that uh, it's a very Western way of using, in the sense that we believe that um, everything that is dirty, everything that we are scared of, everything that we don't want to see, everything that is part of a very dark past, all that is somehow stored in the unconscious mind. But that's not the way in which the unconscious mind is conceptualized in India at all. So here the idea is that this unconscious mind is a vast reservoir of wisdom. um, it is here, like the energy in the unconscious mind, or the Vijnanamay Kosh, which is basically um, unlimited. So it doesn't have limitations of time or space, which means that people have certain paranormal experiences, and sometimes these abilities also, where they are somehow able to see the future or understand somebody's past. Or sometimes even we have these experiences, that sometimes we just intuitively understand that something is um, maybe not going well with somebody that we love, and maybe that person is not here, they are miles away from us, maybe living in a different country also. And suddenly in that one moment we just understand that they are probably not okay, and we call them and we figure out that at that very moment they were thinking of us, or something like that. Any of my participants, would you want to share any such experience where you've experienced synchronicity, or um, some intuition or some telepathic experiences? If there's anybody who wants to share some such thing, I can wait for you all to unmute and share. uh,
Yeah, I would like to share something now.
okay.
So it just happened a week back. So it happened so that I woke up in the morning, and I just before waking up I had a dream of my cousin and his wife, like they've come over, and it was a Sunday, right? And just on that very day, I get a call from my cousin saying, "Hi, what's up? How are you?" So I was like, "I
Okay.
just saw you in my dream. Like this is so interconnected, kind of a thing." So yeah, this happened very recently.
Yeah, correct. Thank you so much for sharing. So many times people understand there are premonitions. People understand, and then we don't understand where this knowledge is coming from, but it just comes. So it is that these are those abilities that all of us have, but we don't really have, or we don't enjoy constant access to them. But we have inside of us a level at which we are really connected with everybody else, and it is from there that those premonitions or telepathic experiences, intuitions, sometimes synchronicity, clairvoyance, okay, all of these experiences happen to us. Of course, some of us are much more attuned with that, and sometimes uh, to the point of being scared, because everything that we've imagined begins to come true, and we wonder whether it is we who are causing it to come true and all that. Okay, so
Right, right.
sometimes some of us are really scared of our own intuitive abilities, and some of us are not exactly like we don't have a particularly developed sixth sense, but still from time to time I think we do enjoy this. um, and sometimes we also get certain guidance from within, so it's almost as though there is a wise guide who's sitting inside and um, who's telling us to do the right thing. So sometimes in the most difficult situations of our life, we somehow just is so in a so-called accidental way seem to pick up a certain book, and we've just found answers to, yeah, uh, mother knows it all, yeah. We've just found answers to some of the questions that we're grappling with. Sometimes out of the blue we just meet somebody who tells us something and we are on our way. Or even the classic example that this scientist called Kekulé, okay, he was working on this benzene molecule, the structure of the hydrocarbon, and it looks like for a long time he was grappling with how those hydrogen and carbon atoms could be arranged in order to form the benzene molecule, but he couldn't get it. And one night it looks like he had a dream. Okay, now even dreams are like that, they're very sort of like they carry metaphorical meaning. And he saw these six snakes, each of that snake had held its own uh, tail in its own mouth, and each of it was chained with every other, and there were six snakes like that in a circular or a hexagonal formation. And it looks like Kekulé just got up in the middle of the night and he said, "Yeah, that's it. I've got the structure of the benzene molecule," and that's how he saw the hydrogen and carbon atoms arranged. So where does this knowledge come from? It comes from that place where, or at that level at which there is nothing like um, a limitation of time or space, or a physical limitation, that whether we have learned a particular discipline or whether we have learned a particular language. No, it's just there. We have access to this vast knowledge, and it is from there that these experiences come. Okay, so this a clairvoyance, telepathy type of experiences, they all lie in the realm of that unconscious mind. Well, the idea so far is that the unconscious mind is a very wise space. It's a realm that can provide us great answers to questions that we are grappling with. But then, how do we tap into it? How do we access it? Because, like I told you, we are not conscious of it, first of all. And secondly, during the day, our conscious mind is making so much noise. Like, we are thinking so many thoughts, most of them negative, that too. And that is why the unconscious mind is always there, but we are not enjoying constant access to it. Okay, now yoga nidra, like I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes, is that process which helps us to tap into the power of that unconscious mind. Another thing about this unconscious mind is that it is that realm which really has the power to create or to manifest. Okay, now this is a very important thing. Please understand it very carefully, because this is the crux of yoga nidra. The thing is that everything that has come into existence had been conceptualized somewhere. So everything must have begun as an idea. Now, if something is at this moment in a just an idea form, it is not yet materialized. So how to really translate it into manifestation is basically a faculty that is taken care of by the unconscious mind. It's a power that rests with the unconscious mind and not with the conscious mind. And that's where people usually encounter the greatest difficulties. Many people say that I've been wishing and I've been praying for XYZ thing to happen in my life, but it has not manifested. It has not manifested because probably the thought is still at the level of the conscious mind. And the more we are ready to plant it, or um, to root it in the unconscious mind, the more is the likelihood that it will manifest, and that too in exact correspondence with the way it has been planted. Okay, now with this idea, we try to understand what yoga nidra is. Yoga nidra is a process where uh, we want to plant an idea of something that we want to happen in our life. Okay, so a very clear picture of something that we want to happen in our life, but not at the conscious mind. We want to plant it in the at that unconscious or a much deeper level of existence. Now for that, we need to somehow overcome the barriers that are caused by the body, the breath, and the mind. And only then that unconscious mind will be extremely open and extremely receptive to receive that idea. Okay, now how do we do it? What we will have to do is, we will have to first shut off the negative, the all the noise, basically all the noise that our conscious mind is making. Yet for us to be able to plant that thought in the unconscious mind, we have to be fully awake. Okay, so this is that exact hypnagogic state, it is called, wherein your body is thoroughly relaxed. Your breath is absolutely slow and even, so that you are not exactly conscious of your breathing. Your mind is also silenced, like the whole uh, incoming and outgoing of those hundreds of thoughts, and the whole whirlpool of thoughts, so to say, is stopped. Okay, and yet your mind is fully aware and alert and awake. Now what happens is, your conscious mind is not causing any disturbance, but it is awake, and your unconscious mind is highly ready to receive. Now in this state of mind, you are going to creatively visualize, or you're going to creatively imagine something that you really want to happen in your life. All of us want something to happen in our life. It could be anything, like it could be maybe a new project that we are working on. uh, it could be about, for students it is many times about an important upcoming examination that they have to face. Okay, it could be about maybe a house that we want to build in a particular way, or it could be more general, such as health, good health, or harmonious interpersonal relationships. It could be anything, no? So make a very clear picture of whatever it is that you really want to happen in your life, and then we go through these steps of completely relaxing our body, then our breath, then our mind. For the mind also, Swami Satyananda Saraswati has given certain exercises, like we have to evoke certain states in quick succession, opposite states in quick succession, so that the conscious mind doesn't make noise, and it is now ready, it is silent enough, and now the unconscious mind is awake, and you creatively visualize. With that visualization, that idea gets planted in the unconscious mind, and it comes true like a post hypnotic suggestion. So believe me, but many people have really managed to create so much of infinite beauty and something in complete correspondence with what they wanted, that it is literally astonishing, with the help of this technique. And after that, there is one more level of our existence, which is the final. It is called as the Anandamay Kosh, wherein we don't exist as a separate body or a separate mind or anything, but we are just that one energy that unites all of existence. Okay, and that is that place of rest and rejuvenation. So in our steps of yoga nidra, we tap into that state also. And as gently as we go in, slowly relaxing the body, then relaxing the breath, then the mind, then this creative visualization. So also we rest in the Anandamay Kosh, and very gently we come back, very slowly, with no jerks, and with the help of these very gentle and slow instructions, we come back. Okay, so this is basically, in a nutshell, the process of Yoga Nidra. One last point that I need to mention is that there is a concept of the resolve or the sankalpa which Swamiji has talked about. What he says is that you have to create a small statement, okay, like a small sentence of not more than 5 to 6 words, but which is in the affirmative, okay, and which succinctly captures whatever it is that you want to create in your life. So for instance, I am in perfect health. It has to be framed in the present moment. It has to be in the affirmative. It has to be short. It has to be positive, and also content-wise positive. So please don't frame anything about, you know, teaching somebody a lesson kind of a thing. Don't do that. It has to be content-wise positive, framed in the affirmative. Keep this sentence ready with you before we practice, because it is used twice, once before we start practicing and then after that creative visualization. Okay, and make sure that you use that resolve in your practice consistently for a few days, so that you only realize how you have tapped into the power of the unconscious mind. So I think, from my side, a very small introduction to what Yoga Nidra really is, like this technique of tapping into the unconscious mind so that we become more conscious creators of our own destiny and achieve a lot of things that we want to achieve. So this is it. And I think, I just want to give you all maybe a 1 minute break if you want to drink water, or if you want to remove anything heavy metallic that you've been wearing, like if you are wearing a watch or earrings or something, you, if you want to remove them and keep them aside.
So, just one query. So, does that mean that when we are doing practicing Yoga Nidra, we should not be wearing any metallic ornament or anything?
As far as possible, don't wear anything heavy metallic which causes any disturbance, because see, the idea is that we really really want to let go, like we want to relax the body so much that we are not even aware of our body. Many people experience an almost hypnotic sort of a trance. Okay, so anything that is heavy and metallic can cause disturbance. I mean, it can make you feel a little aware of the body.
Okay, thank you.
So, are we ready now to begin practice?
Yes, yes, Megha.
Uh, I hope that all of you are seated in a comfortable way and all ready to begin the practice.
Yes.
Okay. We'll start this process of Yoga Nidra with a prayer. Now, gently open your eyes and lie down on the mattress. Keep your whole body straight like you keep in Shavasana. Maintain a little distance between your feet. Heels turned inside, toes turned outside. Keep your hands a little away from the body, palms facing upwards. And adjust your body to the most comfortable pose. Just make a mental note of every sensation, every feeling as it arises and falls in the body. Now take a long, slow, and deep breath. Breathe out slowly and completely. As you breathe out, imagine all the tensions, worries, illnesses passing out of your body. Breathe in slowly and completely. As you breathe in, imagine all the vital energy from outside fill your being. Breathe out, tensions flowing out. Breathe in, energy flowing in, tensions flowing out. With each breath that is passing out of your body is relaxing further. It's very, very relaxed. And your mind is awake and alert. Before we begin the practice of Yoga Nidra, we are going to visualize the statement of our resolve. As though these were words written on a blackboard. Please read the statement of your resolve in your mind 3 times with feeling and emphasis. Trust completely that because of the power that is awakened in the practice of Yoga Nidra, your resolve will definitely come true in your life. And with this, we now begin the process of relaxation. From this point onwards, please say these instructions to yourself mentally along with me. Now I see a beautiful white light at a little distance from my feet. I imagine a beautiful white light a little distance from my feet. And I gently allow this light to enter my body through my toes, relaxing and healing every body part as it moves along. I can see this light has covered both my feet, deeply relaxing every nerve, every muscle, every cell of my body as it moves upwards, gently up through my calves, my legs, into my knees and thighs. As my legs deeply relax, I am able to feel their weight. My legs feel very heavy, deeply relaxed. I allow this beautiful white light to rise further up from the back of my body. My buttocks and waist gently up, lower back, middle back, upper back, and at the same time, from the front of my body, my abdomen and chest, all the muscles of my stomach and chest are deeply relaxed. And this wave of beautiful light reaches right up to my shoulders. I now allow it to flow gently down into my arms, elbows, forehands, both the wrists. I can feel a tingling sensation as the light enters my palms and gently covers all my fingers. I let this light now rise gently up my neck, the back side of my head, the top of my head, and also cover my beautiful face, my forehead, eyebrows, both my eyes, nose and nostrils, cheeks and ears, my jaws, and my chin. My entire body from head to toe is completely relaxed. And I notice that as I relax my body, my breath automatically becomes slow and even. I don't do anything to control my breath, but just observe it. As I observe how my breath comes in and goes out, I realize how soft, how gentle, and how rhythmic it is. I also observe my breath at the level of my stomach. Each time I breathe in, my stomach wall rises a little. Each time I breathe out, it falls a little. And as I observe my breath, I realize that as my breath becomes slow and even, my mind automatically becomes silent and calm. I now evoke a sensation of heaviness in my body. I evoke a sensation of heaviness throughout my body. My body is becoming heavier and heavier, extremely heavy, almost sinking into the ground. And slowly I release the feeling of heaviness. And my body gently comes back to its normal state. And now I evoke a sensation of lightness throughout my body. My whole body from head to toe is becoming lighter and lighter, weightless, it's almost floating clear of the ground. I slowly release the feeling of lightness and gently return back. My body returns back to its normal state. My mind is now very silent, yet awake and alert. In this highly receptive state of my mind, I create a mental picture of a dream that I have cherished. And I visualize it in the minutest detail possible. I'm able to imagine my surroundings. I visualize what I'm doing. And I also feel a deep sense of satisfaction. I'm very joyful. My dream has come true. And now I hold this image very clearly in front of my eyes. I draw this image closer and closer, closer to myself. And I allow it to get completely locked away in my being. With this deep satisfaction, my mind is again very calm and clear. And once again, I am able to see the statement of my resolve as if these were words written on a blackboard. I read them in my mind with feeling and faith. And now, for the next few moments, I take complete rest in the silence of my own being. With the sound of the mantra Om, we are now slowly going to end the practice of yogic relaxation. Bring your attention gently back to your breath. Take a long, slow, and deep breath. And as you breathe in, try to become aware of your body. Try to become aware of your feet, your legs, your back, your stomach and chest, your hands, your neck, your head, and all the muscles of your face. Just become aware of the mattress, the mat on which you're doing your practice, the room where you are. Now, just make gentle movements of your toes. You might find it difficult at first, but just stretch your toes, stretch your feet, stretch your hands, stretch your hands, take them behind your head and stretch. Move your neck, stretch your whole body completely, thoroughly. Now, slowly turn to one side, usually the left side, without jerking, gently sit up. Your eyes are still closed. We'll end this practice with a little prayer. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Rub your palms against each other. Take them to your eyes. Open your eyes inside your palms. Just become aware of the light around you and gently put your hands down. Okay, so if y'all have anything nice to share, any experiences that you had in this 20-minute practice that we did, it was just a small glimpse of what Yoga Nidra is. In this can be a little more detailed actually, but for shortage of time, I just did a small version of it with you. So if anybody wants to share any experience, did anybody experience lightness in the body by any chance?
Yes, Dr. Megha sort of started feeling it, but then was disturbed by someone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, anybody else? Any experience, anything that you want to share after this practice? The head feels lighter. Yeah. Thank you, Sejal. Uh, okay. So, just a few last points that I want to share. If you want to do this practice, please make sure that you do it at a point where your stomach is not full. So, usually, after a heavy meal, you're not supposed to do it for about 2.5 hours or so. But you can do it um, anytime, any other time where you like, if you have had your meal at suppose 1:30, then maybe after 3:30 or 4 o'clock, you can do it anytime. Some people prefer to do it in the morning first thing because they want to stay awake, they don't want to sleep in the practice. Some people have a kind of a gap between their dinner and sleep, so in that way then they do it while they are sleeping. So if they've had dinner by around 8:30, then they can do yoga nidra by 10:30 when they sleep, or 11 when they sleep. And people have got beautiful results, especially with yeah. Thank you so much, Neha. So, especially with anxiety, there's a huge benefit. Insomnia, high blood pressure. Okay, so it's a very potent technique. It feels very simple, but it's very potent. So I just then also the room has to be a little quiet, so you should not be disturbed by doorbells and phone calls, because we are going very deep into the self. It's almost like a trance like state, and so we should not be disturbed by sudden noises. Okay. And please don't have any incense or anything, because we don't want any smells or any tastes to distract us. So the idea is not, it's not like a religious thing, but it's more like deeply relaxing the body and letting go, basically letting go of the awareness of conscious mind. Okay, so this is all from my side.
Often do you think we should be practicing this, or is there?
See, ideally once in a day.
Okay.
Okay. Now I have my own like I've created my own audio the MP3 audio track of this, because these instructions are something that we don't have by heart, so the idea of having instructions is to keep going with the flow, because even if the mind gets distracted, like it happens when we meditate, it's nice to keep coming back, and the instructions help to keep. Okay, so I just want to wish all of you a wonderful day. I'm sure you are feeling energized, because it's even 15-20 minutes of this practice is somehow equivalent to about 2.5 to 3 hours of sleep, so I'm sure you're going to feel energized during the day. Please.
And thank you so much, Megha
Thank
ma'am,
you,
for
Doctor.
joining us. Thank you,
Yeah,
everybody else. Our Birlas of women here are
thank
very
you.
hardworking.
Yeah, yeah,
We had a great time with you. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Okay, have a great day. Bye.